Merriam-Webster defines a hater as a person who hates someone or something. In the more informal definition, a hater is described as a person who actively and aggressively criticizes and disparages something or someone.
Think about your life. You are a failure. You are a failure. You can never make it. You know you cannot make it.
Melman's version of a hater is much simpler. It's basically someone who doesn't want to see you prosper and will sometimes take action to facilitate that outcome. If you're anything like me, you sometimes use your TV to set the mood in the house. That's why it's called a TV set.
Shut up!
And we're not talking about Netflix and chill here. This is a family-friendly channel. No. I'm talking about the vibe you get from a Saturday morning cartoon or your favorite evening shows like Kung Fu The Legend Continues or Renegade. Once they come on, your space is instantly transformed. I use shows as background noise all the time to create a vibe in the house, and one of the more popular shows I use, especially during the holidays, is the Flintstones. Now, for the vast majority of you, you're probably wondering, who is this grown man talking about the Flintstones? Well, that's a rude question, and I'll not dignify it with a response. But for the vaster majority of you, you probably think I mistitled this video and said Barney instead of Fred. I understand your confusion and forgive you for it, but I do not make mistakes around such important issues. Fred is obnoxious, loudmouthed, selfish, and sometimes uncouth, and this will oftentimes unintentionally provide cover for the real villain of the show. One who unassumingly operates right under everyone's nose the whole time. Ladies and gentlemen, Barney Rubble is a hater. If you've somehow been living under a rock or a bedrock and don't know who the Flintstones are, you're probably the one living in the Stone Age. But that's why I'm here to enlighten you. The show is a cartoon sitcom about two middle-class families who live next door to each other and the relatable issues that they experience in work and life. The show is mostly driven by Fred and Barney's desire to make it out of the Matrix, invest in crypto, and live a life of luxury on Miami Beach. Oh, sorry, wrong script. Fred and Barney have the same frustrations as anyone in the rat race today, and that's why this show is still relatable. But in their quest for financial comfort through a myriad of shenanigans, Barney is always a thorn in Fred's side, or a knife in his back, or a pain in his... You get the point. So let's start light with some hate that might appear innocuous at first, but they're symptoms of a very trash friend.
Frederick, I hate Frederick!
So Fred was catching a nap in the backyard as you do, and he asks Barney to wake him up at 3 o'clock. So Barney pulls this stunt on him and wakes him up at 1 o'clock, 2 hours earlier than requested, to ask him the time.
What's the matter, Barney?
Oh, nothing, Fred. You told me to wake you up when it's 3 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
I left my watch inside. Hey, what time is it now?
It's 1 o'clock.
Oh, well, then you have 2 hours yet. Go back to sleep, Fred.
So I ask you to wake me up at 3 and then you wake me up at 1 to ask me the time. And look at him trying to play innocent with Fred. But that's just a taste. Let's keep going. Barney is working on his car and he needs a wrench, so he pops into Fred's place to borrow one. Nothing wrong with that. But while in the house, he realizes Fred is not home, so he starts poking around the kitchen like that annoying friend who just came to your mind right now. You know who I'm talking about. Then Barney steals Fred's last cool drink from the fridge. And what's more annoying about Barney is that Wilma buys into this act of his and thinks he's so nice.
Oh, that Barney is so polite. Such good manners. I wish Fred would learn to be more like him.
So Fred comes home from a tough, hot day at work, and the one drink he was looking forward to is gone. Punk. Later, when Barney's house floods, Fred offers them a roof over their heads and Barney proceeds to be the worst house guest ever, maybe only rivaled by Yosemite Sam. He takes Fred's couch by force and makes him sleep on some rickety chairs. He grabs the bigger piece of cake from the plate because we've already established that he's a self-centered, greedy guy, and continues setting traps for Fred at every turn. Barney even took the phone off the hook while Fred was expecting an important call from his boss because he couldn't concentrate on his comic books while the phone was ringing. Then this fool finds pizza in the fridge for the whole family and eats it all by himself. I've never seen a greedier guy than this.
No. You ate a whole pizza yourself? A meal for the four of us?
But you think I'm being petty, don't you? Nah, let's keep going. I'll win you over, don't worry. So one night, Fred and Barney sneak out of the house to attend a secret poker game. So Fred can't tell Wilma that he's going to gamble, so when he wins big at the poker night, old hating-ass Barney tells him that it'll be tough to hide the money from Wilma. Barney suggests to Fred that they can claim to have found the money in a wallet on the ground. And if the suggestion came from Barney, you know there's a setup coming. They use Barney's old worn-out wallet, and when they get home and tell Wilma the story, she understandably says that they need to find the owner of the wallet. After they establish that there was no identification and therefore no way to find the owner of the wallet, all should be good, right? Oh no, that's where you're wrong. Barney is a next-level hater and probably schemed all this from the jump.
That's what makes me feel so bad. There's absolutely no way of finding out who lost it.
Oh, yes, there is, Fred.
Huh?
We'll put an ad in the paper. You know, wallet found, owner can have by identifying.
Barney's right, Fred.
But.
And that's how Fred ends up losing his money. Your biggest haters are usually closer to you than you think. Barney will even cut off his nose to spite his face. So as usual, Fred is chill and just trying to read a newspaper in the backyard, and Barney picks this as the perfect moment to yell while practicing his golf swing. This was not the first or the last time he would pull such stunts, and it would usually get him a knock on the head. So Barney continues to be a noisy nuisance while building a mini helicopter. Nothing wrong with that, creatives will create. But later on, they're supposed to participate at a bowling tournament. Wilma informs Fred that they're going to the opera instead. When Fred tries to push back because he's the captain of the bowling team, he finds out Barney, who is in the bowling tournament with him, was the one who bought the opera tickets. Annoying. But let's keep going. They come up with a scheme to fake an injury so that they can stay home while Wilma and Betty go to the opera alone. So Fred and Barney get to the bowling alley for the tournament using Barney's invention, and they are curiously the only people there. Either they have imaginary friends and tournaments, or more likely they didn't have a budget to animate a bowling alley full of people. Either way, Barney is still playing clumsy and attacking Fred with a bowling ball, trying to take that man out. So Wilma and Betty leave the opera and stroll into the bowling alley to make a call and check in on Fred, who is supposed to be home injured. They end up busting the boys who are bowling at the same alley, but they were able to disguise themselves with fake mustaches and cartoon logic. That's fine. Well and good. Then they have to race home before the girls to protect their deception, which they manage to do. Now, I can hear you all asking, why is Barney a hater in this instance? He hasn't done anything wrong. Well, that's where you're wrong, bucko. Well, Barney decided to stay in character and outed them at the end. That's some next level kamikaze hating, where you put yourself in trouble just so the other guy can go down as well. Still not convinced? Oh, there's more where that came from. How about the time when Fred was just chilling in their shared pool about to enjoy a snack? Then here comes Barney to sink the Titanic. And after putting Fred underwater, he takes that man's food. That's some other level hating right there. You never take another man's food. Then Fred comes out to swim later and Barney has drained the pool. Barney was seriously trying to take that man out. I can tell you're not convinced yet, so let's keep going. How about the time when Barney was unemployed and Fred tried to get him a job through networking at a golf course? Fred was playing against Mr. Boulder, who had never beaten him in the past, so there was easy money on the table. A sure win, some would say, but some would not have predicted the X factor that is Barney. Barney played caddy to Mr. Boulder and helped him to beat Fred. Honestly, with friends like Barney, who needs enemies? So Fred loses his bet, but it doesn't stop there. The money he lost in the bet was supposed to pay off his TV. But through that golf game that Fred took him to, Barney got a job as a repo man. And his first repo job, wouldn't you know it, was to repossess Fred's TV. This obviously led to a lot of friction between the two of them because Barney did everything he could to get Fred's TV. And if you think Fred shouldn't have gambled the TV money in the first place and it's probably his fault, I have another one for you. Try and defend this one. So Fred and Barney belong to some Illuminati Buffalo Lodge club thingy. Fred had been lodge president 3 times in the past, and coming up on another election, Barney decided to stand against Fred. That's hate. So Fred, being the gracious person that he is, decided to step aside and let Barney run uncontested like any good friend would do. 'Cause Fred is just that dude, you know? Look at that support from Fred. Well, if you haven't already guessed what happened next, Barney took to the podium and immediately turned into Mussolini. His first order of business was to collect all back dues that were owed by lodge members. As you can probably guess with the direction this video has gone in, Fred owed some back dues himself, but he understandably did not see this backstabbing coming. Picture this. Fred wins a really tough golf tournament, and here comes this hater to embarrass his friend in front of everyone. What is wrong with this man? So Barney spends the rest of the episode taunting Fred and even gets a dog to attack him when he tries to retaliate. Barney is a whole supervillain out here, I'm telling you. But I can tell for some reason you're still not convinced, and there's a whole lot more where that came from. So again, Fred wins a bunch of money at the races and he tried to hide it under a rock because he couldn't hide it at home with Wilma always snooping around. Barney decided to drop a rock on his hand in his usual hater fashion. And later when Fred returned to retrieve the money, a thug was waiting to rob him. And guess what? You guessed it! Barney did nothing to help him. He acted like he was doing something, but that was just all for show. He then abandoned Fred as he was getting mollywopped to go and tell Wilma what was happening, as if that would do anything. Actually, how do we know he didn't set up the whole thing? This Barney guy is devious. Nah, I'm just playing. The truth is, Barney is very dumb, gullible, and simple. He might be well-intentioned, but he does the most illogical things sometimes. To be honest, the Flintstones has some of the best, most frustrating writing of any cartoon you'll ever see. There are so many instances of bad habits exhibited by all characters, and depending on your sensitivity to certain things, someone on this show is bound to trigger you. I can actually do a whole video series about how each character on this show is trash, but they just have a lot of nuance to each of them that includes all the black, white, and grey of human relationships. And yes, guilty. I just wanted an excuse to talk about the Flintstones without doing your typical show summary. There's 6 seasons and 166 episodes of this show that I could talk about, but
ain't nobody got time for that.
And if you've stayed this long, this was probably more fun for you anyway. Your thoughts and comments will be appreciated as always. Happy holidays, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.